Foreign was tough for me at 20, not because I lacked food, shelter, or comfort. Quite the opposite. I had everything I needed: a loving family, a great school, and a comfortable life. My parents were wonderful people who cared deeply for us, maybe a little too much. As the only girl among 3 children, I bore the brunt of their overprotectiveness. While my brothers had more freedom, I was constantly restricted, shielded from the bad guys. I saw it as unfair and resented them for it. But there was nothing I could do. While my friends gossiped about boys, gifts, and upcoming parties, I kept up with the latest TV shows and music. By the time I turned 20, I decided I wasn't a naive girl anymore. I had a boyfriend, 26, kind, clean, and respectful. He was everything parents would want for their daughter. I believed they would be proud of me for making such a good choice. The first time I brought him home, my parents remained unmoved. During dinner, they exchanged awkward glances and spoke in hushed tones, almost as if they were discussing something he wasn't worthy of hearing. After the meal, they politely told us they did not approve. When he asked why, they simply said they didn't think I should be in a relationship yet. I was furious, but I knew it was a test, a trap to provoke me into losing my temper in front of him. Once he left, I told my parents I was going to be with him, whether they liked it or not. They stood firm. No relationships until I was at least 25. I spoke to my boyfriend about it, and together we made a plan. One quiet morning, I left home and never returned. We eloped to a small town miles away. At first, the new place terrified me. Strangers surrounded me, and my boyfriend was the only person I could rely on. Worry consumed me, but he remained my rock, constantly reassuring me that we would be fine. With time, I began to open up, mingling with the locals who were kind and welcoming. Eventually, one of them offered us jobs at a coffee shop. We were thrilled. Every morning, I served coffee while my boyfriend made it. After a while, we decided to expand. The owner liked the idea of turning the shop into a small restaurant. We started making simple meals, but business didn't boom as we had hoped. Customers stopped coming, and the owner, unhappy with the decline, hinted at letting us go. The thought of losing our only source of income shattered me. One of the town's most influential men, a 30-year-old regular customer, made a passing remark while drinking his coffee one day. He was well-liked, charismatic, and always surrounded by people. He approached me and said he knew about our struggles. He promised to help us bring back customers. On one condition, I had to let him have his way with me. At first, I refused, but then he stopped visiting, and the decline in customers became even more drastic. We were on the verge of closing. Desperate, I sought him out and gave in. Slowly, business picked up again. People flocked to our restaurant, and we became the heart of the town. The owner was pleased, my boyfriend, and I felt secure once more. Every now and then, I had to meet the demands of our Savior, but over time, I stopped fighting it. It became just another part of my life. Everything changed one evening when I went to serve him at his table. He gently held my hand, bit his lip, and smiled. I knew he was flirting, but the moment was wrong, and he had to stop. Fortunately, or should I say unfortunately for me, my boyfriend had come outside to get something. He saw our customer holding onto my hand and assumed he was trying to harass me. My boyfriend challenged him, telling him to stay away from me. Before leaving, the customer bellowed that he had already had me and there was no need. At first, my boyfriend dismissed it as drunken talk until the customer told him to ask me. He turned to me, expecting me to call the bluff, but I couldn't lie. I had never lied to anyone before, not even my parents. My boyfriend's face twisted with sadness and anger. He told me he regretted letting me out of my parents' cage. Then he went to the back of the restaurant, changed his clothes, and walked out. I couldn't chase after him because of the customers, so I stayed back. When I got home, I discovered that he had left, taking all his belongings. I tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. For days, I searched for him all over town, but there was no trace of him. Now, I am alone in this town where I know no one. He still won't answer my calls, and I can't go back home. I don't know what to do. 2 years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I cheated on Bob with our mutual friend John. We were all in our mid-30s. Bob and I had been together for 5 years and thought it would be forever, but I broke up with him out of guilt and confessed soon after. At the time, I was in a manic episode. I'm bipolar. It's not an excuse, but I find it relevant. My mind was a wreck, and I became obsessed with starting over. John became a catalyst for that. I was deeply unhappy, for many reasons, most of them related to my mental health. Bob and I were both emotionally destroyed by my cheating, the breakup, and the 8 months we still had to live together for financial reasons. Leaving each other, even after all that time, was painful. I never thought I would lose him completely. Reading this back, I know how awful it sounds. And it gets worse. 6 months after Bob and I split, I started seriously dating John. While I was still living with Bob, I think a large part of me wanted to prove that my cheating wasn't meaningless, that I didn't destroy my relationship with Bob for nothing. But I did. I take full responsibility, and I have struggled to forgive myself. I have never cheated before, and have never even entertained the thought since. But I made an exception then, and I shattered everything. I try to push it out of my mind, but it keeps coming back. Bob was a wonderful man. We had a bond one thought was unbreakable. I miss him. I miss his family. I miss everything we built together. We were aligned on so much, and I ruined it. Since then, I have made great strides in managing my mental health. It's not perfect, but I have improved. With that clarity, I see my mistakes so much more clearly, and I see how my manic state affected my decision-making. Not as an excuse, just as a piece of the puzzle. Over the past few months, Bob has stopped speaking to me. We used to text occasionally, though it had dwindled over time. Now, it's complete radio silence. We had pets together. And he didn't even respond to a message about them. If it isn't obvious, I am not happy with John. We have serious issues. But more than that, he just isn't Bob. And I feel guilty for feeling that way. More guilt. I can't get Bob out of my head. I dream about him. I am sad, deeply sad. In a perfect world, Bob and I would work through this and find our way back to each other. But I am afraid he hates me. I'm afraid the idea that we might reconnect one day is just a fantasy. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that I was capable of hurting someone. Hurting Bob like this, the guilt is overwhelming. And I don't know if it's forgivable. I am in therapy and I talk about it often, but nothing helps. I feel like an awful, foolish, selfish person. People tell me to move on, that I'll never have the same relationship with Bob again, that even if we got back together, it wouldn't be the same. They say I need to leave him alone, that he deserves peace. And I know they're probably right, but I can't stop thinking about him. And I don't know how to let go.